In the organisational effectiveness inventory, you measure communication downwards, communication upwards,
Yes.
and an interesting one called communication for learning.
Yes.
And what we often find in the surveys is that communication upwards not too bad, communication downwards not too bad, but communication for learning not so great. Do you want to just tell a little bit about that one?
It's one that people don't really think about. I see communication for learning as being a focus on the entire organization rather than on subunits of the organization, a focus on how things fit together instead of a focus on silos and parts, focus on the big picture rather than what's immediately in front of us, the details, etc. And it turned out to be one of the stronger measures within the organizational effectiveness inventory in terms of being a lever for the constructive styles. And part of it is just what the three of you were talking about. It's involving people very early in the conversation and getting them not only to understand how the change is going to impact them individually in their departments, but how it's going to look for the entire organization as a system.
Thank you. The next question is a little bit of a tricky one, but I'm sure it's one that's in several minds in the room. I'm interested in understanding how to move towards a more constructive culture in an environment that has very low trust.
Well, let me start on that one. I thought Cormac's story was great, and it's something that we've done in our organisation a lot, which is making sure that senior leaders share their own vulnerability very, very early on. Because I don't think that when you stand in front of a group of people and kind of strip yourself a little bit naked in front of them, that it's hard for people to see a big agenda behind that. And doing that on quite a regular basis with a lot of senior people being very open about what they're scared of, what makes them feel uncomfortable, where they've got big weaknesses, I find is one of the strongest ways to break that barrier down. Because if people see you at a very vulnerable point, it's pretty hard for them to think that you're out to get them, and it creates a lot of trust and it creates a lot of sense of group empowerment around that as well.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely endorse that. I think another key component is transparency. So the more transparent you can be about information in the business, what's going on in the business, and that flow of information is continuous and instant. So for instance, out of our weekly management meeting, the notes get posted on the internal internet by lunchtime. So everybody knows what we talked about that day. And we'd have a rule, there's got to be a really good reason not to share something. And if you set that pattern and behavior that everyone is sharing information on a continuous basis, then I think you help build that trust that people knows what's going on. There's no secret agendas, there's no secret projects, and everyone, I think that helps to build that sense of trust and alignment.
Sure, great.
Yeah, I would say my three would be vulnerability, definitely, and transparency, definitely. And I find it intriguing that, as corporates or as businesses, we employ adults. But for some reason, when we go through a change process, we actually treat them like children. So I'm not quite sure what happens in corporate Australia to make that happen. So the transparency point, I think, is so important that we actually really treat people like adults. The one that I would add to that is actually working in a collaborative way. So if you work in a collaborative way with your people around the elements of change and get them involved in it and be part of it so that change isn't done to them, actually it's part of the organisation's DNA to work together on these next phases of the organisation. Not only will you get the organisation bought into what you're doing, but you'll actually get a better outcome. Because the people who deal with customers every day, the people who sell your products every day, they know more about your business than your executive team will. They'll help lead through it, but actually get the power of the people and work in a collaborative way, and they'll make all the difference.
Thank you. Rob?
These are great answers. I'll just put them in terms of the circumflex. The two styles that are most strongly related to trust in organizations: positive way, humanistic encouraging, style 1. In a negative manner, oppositional, style 7. Take everything you were just talking about, think of those kinds of behaviors in terms of style 1, which is all around respect for people, communicating openly, developing people, doing things in a way that gains their trust, as opposed to style 7, opposing things indirectly, being critical. Those are the first styles that kind of organization should focus on. in order to pave the way for further cultural change.